Today on Joe's Geek Show, we're going to be talking about the Suicide Squad. What's going on, and welcome to Joe's Geek Show, the video series where we talk comics. And before we get started, if you're new to the channel, you can do so by hitting that like button, clicking that subscribe button, and sharing. And with that, yeah, we're going to talk about how freaking awesome this movie is. So being a somewhat disconnected sequel to, well, Suicide Squad, the Suicide Squad returns to this universe, this time directed by James Gunn, and we see a decent amount of cast members come back, like Viola Davis, Margot Robbie, Joel Kinnaman, and Jai Courtney, returning to their respected roles because Task Force X has yet another mission. So we get introduced to a bunch of new characters for the Suicide Squad, and this movie promptly begins, and oh my god, the first 10 minutes of this movie are amazing. Because one of the things that I like about James Gunn movies, specifically James Gunn movies where he's off the leash, he can take crazy, intense, gory, funny, all mash it together and make it work. There's definitely a level of quality going on here that was rather lacking in the first film. Now, while I won't say I completely hated the first Suicide Squad movie, it definitely felt disjointed. I thought that the story was silly and not in a good way. I thought that the characters didn't really have any camaraderie. Sure, I had a couple favorites in there, but didn't really connect with the majority of them. Despite being in a Suicide Squad movie, it felt very paint by numbers and, well, rather predictable on who was gonna live and who was gonna die. And at first I thought I might be getting more of that, but then the movie does some really impressive things by killing off certain characters, particularly at the beginning of this movie, making me think, oh, it's that kind of movie. Like, anybody, but with the exception of Margot Robbie, is technically fair game. And then as the movie progresses, you start to get to know the characters a little better. You kind of begin to settle between that second and third act, where it's kind of like, okay, I think now we've reached the point where we've hit that core team where maybe nobody else will die, and then, God, others die. Some completely out of nowhere, others that I kind of saw coming, but I was sitting there telling myself, please, no, not this guy, not this guy, not this guy, and yeah, it happened. And then, of course, teetering with a particular character where I'm like, I swear to God, if this one character dies, I am going to be furious. King Shark, I'm talking about King Shark. There were a couple times in this movie where I'm like, okay, is this dude gonna get it? Please, for the love of God, don't, because I love King Shark in this movie. I like the fact that he's a bit of a simpleton. Sylvester Stallone plays the voice perfectly. I also like the sort of dad bod look he's got going on. I truly feel that King Shark is my spirit animal. Which brings me to the next thing I liked about this movie, and that I felt something watching this movie. I jaw dropped at the level of gore going on in this movie. I laughed at a lot of the jokes. This movie also a couple times just reached out and just touched my heart, man. There was this scene on the bus where Ratcatcher 2 is talking about Ratcatcher 1, aka her dad, and it's this very sad story. And then later on in the movie, when I thought she might actually die, and the level of emotion coming from both her and the one that was about to kill her, I was just engrossed in all of it. Which now I'm gonna say, all the actors did a really good job in this movie. Some of which we know are already amazing actors, like Margot Robbie. She now owns the role of Harley Quinn. Viola Davis and Joel Kinnaman also do their roles really respectively. And then you have some new people coming on the crew, like Idris Elba coming in as Bloodsport, and of course, John Cena as Peacemaker. And these two were definitely interesting, because when it came to the character Bloodsport, at first it really seemed like they were going for a very similar story to what Will Smith's Deadshot had in the first film. He's in prison, he's got a daughter, but it's not exactly the same loving relationship that we saw with Deadshot and his daughter. Instead, it's a few good solid minutes of them just cursing each other out, and I was just like, oh, alright. That was great. It's what I would call a good subversion of a story point I thought we were going to have. But of course, Bloodsport does still love his daughter. That's why he actually agrees to be on Task Force X. And then we got Peacemaker. So John Cena, like Steve Austin or The Rock, has tried to make that transition from the WWE to film. And while he's had some interesting roles here and there really hasn't seemed to be a specific role that I would think was particularly stand out, like more so in terms of his acting ability. But I gotta say, he delivered here. He evokes comedy when he needs to. He has looks of sadness and determination in this movie. And what can I say about David Dastmalchian as Polka Dot Man? You're gonna have to watch the movie for that one. Coming along the more antagonist side, you've got these military people from the Corto Maltese that are working with Doctor Who himself, Peter Capaldi, aka the Thinker in this film, as they're doing research into, well, Starro. That's not a spoiler, Starro was in the trailer. And I'll say the majority of the Corto Maltese military guys in this movie, they're not really the main objective, just sort of in the way. But Peter Capaldi does pretty good. Albeit he doesn't get like a whole lot of screen time, but for what he's in here, he does pretty good. I actually like this rendition of the Thinker. It's gonna chop him out and insert him into season 4 of The Flash instead. Now, let's talk about the big man himself, Starro. Now, how do you think James Gunn dealt with a giant starfish? Well, if any of his other creature features are any indication, like things like Slither, for example, oh, he just does it. He just does Starro straight up. He's all giant and purple, blue, with a big old eye. I mean, he looks ripped out of the comics. Nothing is too crazy or too silly for James Gunn. But there is one element with Starro when he releases all of like his little Starro fish guys to attach to people. Well, in this rendition, turns out you can't just, rip them off. We actually get to see what happens, when you have a sort of disconnected starfish thing away from your face, but still sort of connected at the same time. We'll say it's amazing for gorehounds. So what else can I say? I really like this movie. I hope that James Gunn comes back for a sequel. It seems like he's definitely set up for one. This is exactly the direction I wanted to see a sequel go, because ever since, again, I saw the first Suicide Squad movie, I was just like, there was definitely just something missing. And this movie just gives me all that. So The Suicide Squad, have you seen this movie? What did you think? I would love to hear your thoughts. Please leave your comments in the comment section below. And if you liked this video, I'd love it if you'd smash that like button, share it with some friends, subscribe if you're not subscribed already, and ring that notification bell for more comic book content. And if you're wondering what to watch next, consider one of these 2 videos. Alright, take care, have a great day, and as always, stay geeky.